selling nearly 7 million copies, both in the US and abroad. We didn't actually like to think of it as an MMO. We called it a cooperative online role-playing game because it was intended for people to play in small groups together. Now we've moved more on towards the MMO, where a lot of people playing in the same space can work together towards the same goals. We talked a little bit about our dynamic event system last year. We introduced that for the first time, gave people a taste of what it feels like to play an event out in the open world that they didn't have to get from a quest giver, that they can play no matter how many people are involved, and that they can all benefit from, that there isn't, only one person gets loot or any of that. Everybody gets to play together and really experience that true MMO experience. We also talked about our personal story, which is a story that you progress through, that you pick the background for your character, and then play an individualized story that branches and has consequences based on your choice, and also on the dynamic combat that we experience through the game. So this year, we've brought a few more of each of those elements. We brought a little bit more of the personal story in that we have all 5 of our playable races available for you to try out this year, including the Charr, the Human, and the Norn, each of whom have their tutorial and personalized story available to play. The Asura and Sylvari are both playable for the first time here at Gamescom. They are in a higher level area where you'll experience more of the dynamic combat, and we'll have a chance to play through both of those. One of the other things that we brought with us this year is a little bit of our character customization. Last year we excluded it from the demo because we wanted people to get in and try out those 3 cornerstones of the Guild Wars 2 project. This year we wanted to let people play around a little bit. We don't have all of the options here, but a lot of the ones that you'd expect are showing up. You can adjust your height. You can adjust the physique of your character if you're a human. See, how burly, how big do you want them to be? There are a number of hair options, both the normal and also the funny. There are also the hair colors as well. It's good. That's nice. You can choose a different starting face. One of the things that we really wanted to do with this was make it very visual. That way players who didn't want to play around with sliders could just pick a thing that they think looks nice, and then there you go. A beard, perhaps, if you're like me and you want a little beard on your character. For the characters who do want more of that depth, we do allow you to use sliders to adjust the angles of the eyes, the width of the mouth, the length of the nose, to really give you that sense of personalization and customization that you want. We've also brought back the armor die system that we showed off last year. It's a little bit more in-depth this year. Allows you to die many components on each one of the different parts of your armor. Here Elijah's picking something he likes for the top. Then he'll go and adjust it for the trousers, also for the helmet. One of the interesting things about the die system is the way that we've tried to make it so that each one of these channels that he's adjusting the color for is assigned to a particular part of that piece of armor. And if you get a new piece of armor, the system will try and transfer that color across. So if you're a person who, like Elijah, likes to have red arms, if you get another shirt that has red arms, it'll try and paint those red for you. If it doesn't have that, well, then no such luck. So that's our character customization system. We're always adding new features to it, but we wanted to show you guys a little bit more of what you could expect when the game comes out. We're not going to play through the human story because that was one of the parts of our demo last year. This year we're going to bring you the all-new Charr storyline. Building on that idea of scope and size, we've also brought 7 of the 8 playable professions. The 8th one we still haven't revealed and we won't be revealing here at Gamescom, so don't get excited. 3 of them we didn't have with us last year. We brought the Guardian, the Thief, and the Engineer. And we're going to go ahead and play the Engineer because it's kind of appropriate for the Charr, being a little bit more militaristic and mechanical. The Charr also have their character customization, but for them, instead of the physique, they have, fur. So we get to pick the different patterns. You can decide whether you want to paint it more like a leopard or a tiger or, well, like a crazy-looking Charr. Also, the head options are here. Charr can, of course, have different hairstyles as well, have a different starting face. But one of the things that's important to the Charr is their horns. Each one of the different races will have these kinds of options that are available just for that race and make sense for that race. So whether it's an Asuran's ears, or it's a Sylvari's, hair that's made out of leaves, or the Charr's horns, each one will feel different depending on which character you're making. So now that Elijah's got that, we'll go through a little bit more of the story of character creation. Like I mentioned, one of the aspects of our personal story is that you give your character a backstory. So you tell them, what is your favorite tool to use because you're an engineer, or, are you a charming person, or are you a ferocious person? It's also different depending on the race. For the Charr, it's very important which legion you're in. We have 3 playable regions, the blood, the ash, and the iron. We'll go ahead and pick iron because that makes sense with an engineer. This is the choice of who your sparring partner is in your warband. So within the legions, Charr are divided into units called warbands, which are like their family. They're raised with them from a very young age. And here what you're doing is choosing a character who, not to give too much away in terms of spoilers, will affect who lives and dies from your warband as you play through your personal story. So making a choice here will affect that branch right from the outset. There's also another choice that affects your story later on, which Elijah will just pick whatever he likes. And then we get to the last step where it sums up. This is the background for your character. You give them a name, and then we begin. We'll go ahead and watch the Charr intro cinematic here.
Engines of destruction, we have killed our gods. We reclaim our homeland of Asgard, and we planted victory banners in the graves of our enemies. Yet, if we waver, it could slip through our claws. Victory, at any cost. The Iron Legion's war cry can be heard in the churning of gears and the roaring of siege engines. I serve the Iron Legion. I will victory. I forge the weapons of Charr supremacy. I've earned the respect of my comrades, and forged alliances I can call on at times of need. My Legion values innovative solutions, efficient execution. Like our steel, we do not pay. Centuries ago, humans stole us from the Iron Legion. They have paid for that crime with blood, but the usurpers fight us even in death. Today, the combined armies of the Black Citadel will assault the Ghostland Plague Iron Legion territory. I've been assigned to reinforce the wall. Let the Ash Legion strike from the shadows. Let the Blood Legion die on the field. I am part of the machine. This is my story.
So there's a rich story that Guild Wars 2 has that has these different branches that you can play through as the different races. It's also a story that builds on a deep backstory from the original Guild Wars. So while you don't need any background to understand that the Charr are fighting the ghosts, if you played the original Guild Wars, you'll recognize these ghosts as the ghosts of Ascalonian soldiers who you might have played with way back in 250 years ago in the original game. So for those of you who played the demo last year, you'll notice that there are a few differences to the UI and actually the way that Elijah is playing. One of the things that we've changed this year as part of our process of continuing iteration is the way that Elijah unlocks skills. You'll notice down there that Elijah is using the first skill on his musket, and he's slowly unlocking the second with every time that he attacks and kills one of his opponents. What we wanted to do here was we wanted to take away the feeling of we want to take away the feeling of separation from the weapon. We wanted people to get used to each skill as it was unlocked and give them an opportunity to use it so that they understood better what each weapon was capable of. And the best way to do that is to tie it to using that weapon. So that was a way that we changed the way that you unlock those rather than going to a person and buying a skill book that unlocks a thing. And the more you use it, the more you'll get to know it. But also you'll notice that it happens very quickly. This isn't meant to be a grind. This isn't meant to be kill, a million things before you get a useful skill. Elijah's not yet even out of the tutorial, and he's got 90% unlocked. Another thing that we've changed is over here on the right, you'll notice that he has a dodge bar. This used to be an energy bar that was used for a number of different things. Now it is primarily just for dodging. There's also a button that's assigned to it, so that even if you don't want to use the handy shortcut of double-clicking in a particular direction, for those characters who want to bind dodge to just one button, they can. Or for those who like to click on it, they can do that as well. All right, the story demands that we speak to this person, so let's see what they have to say.
What's so important that the Blood Legion Tribune is there?
Ghost Duke Barrington is far more powerful than we thought. His army just broke through our defenses. Ridlock's about to fight him head-on. If he succeeds, it'll be weeks before the Ghost reforms, and we can rebuild our perimeter.
On my way.
So one of the things about the story and the events that we like to drive home is how much voiceover there is for our game. We have over 60 feature films worth of voiceover in the game. Many of the characters that you will speak to, and even a lot who are just standing on the wayside, will talk as you walk by. We wanted to free people up from having to read. For those who want the backstory, there's plenty of detail in the books and in the descriptions and in the text from when you speak to characters. But for those who really just want to get into the action, you'll hear someone tell you, go do this thing, or I need help over here. And there we go. She says, hurry. Hurry, Tribune Brimstone is fighting Duke Barrington. Get down into the crypt. So even if you're not reading, if you're paying attention to attacking things, you'll still know what to do because you heard it. So Elijah's going through the crypt here with a couple of other players. One of the things that's interesting about our tutorial area is that it is a multiplayer area. And so as he's playing through, there will be other people who are out on the show floor, or we even have some of the developers back at home who are playing along with us. So we talked to Ritlock, and Ritlock has a plan. And Ritlock's plan, as often happens, is to go in and fight things. So again, quickly, the story of Duke Barrington. In the 250 years since the original Guild Wars, this is not part of the original Guild Wars as something that you experience yet. The Charr have continued to invade the town of Ascalon, believing it to be their rightful home space. And what happened is their leader broke his sword, his magical sword that caused a fire which drove back the Charr, but as a consequence turned all of his people into ghosts. So for the last several hundred years, the Charr, who have reclaimed Ascalon, have been having to fight the ghosts of the people they sought to drive out. And that's a theme in their story. Duke Barrington, however, is not willing to go down easily. So this first boss encounter kind of embodies what we're trying to do with the game, which is make sure that you're not wasting your time, that there's always something fresh and exciting. Even in a tutorial, this is the boss that you fight. Your job is to fight into this crypt and take on something like this head on. He's got a variety of attacks. There you can see that he has a breath attack, which causes Elijah to be afraid and run away. He also will occasionally smash his hammer, hurting people and knocking them back. And sometimes he'll jab it into the ceiling, like right there, and try and get the people who are attacking from the back row. It's a sort of dynamic combat that we want to instill. We want you to be aware of your position. We want you to be aware of where the other people are, what's happening to you. For that reason, we've also backed the camera off during these larger boss encounters. we want you to be able to see everything. We want you to be able to see the biggest heights of these incredible bosses, and also to, you know, be aware of your surroundings. For this reason, we've also tooled up the other boss encounters. So if you previously played either against the Earth Elemental or Issermir the Worm in the Norn area, both of those have now have additional attacks, and also this new boss camera. So they're a fresh experience if you've already tried them once before. Man, Duke Baradin is not going down easily. Part of the reason for this may be the other players. As an event, this scales up and down depending on how many people are available. When Elijah came in and there were originally those the Duke's guards for him to fight off, there were only a handful of them, but as more people came in, more and more would spawn. So if you came in here with a group of a dozen people like I saw earlier this morning, there would be like 20 of those guards hanging out, and they will be much tougher to fight. In addition, the boss himself will scale up, doing more damage, taking more damage, until the event is completed. We want it to be a challenge to everyone, but we also want it to be achievable by yourself. You can do it, Elijah. No pressure. It's only the tutorial boss.